Welcome back to another week of Raining Cats and Dogs, you guys. Thank you very much for joining us. I am your host, Henry Jansen, sports writer for the Kirksville Daily Express. And we have a little bit of a different look this evening. Easter kind of threw us a curveball, so we are on the second floor of Pickler Memorial Library rather than the first. This evening, we'll be joined by head athletic trainer Michelle Boyd. Later on, we will be joined by Kirksville's Elizabeth Anderson. She is the speech and debate and theater teacher slash coach, but for our purposes tonight, we'll go with coach. And then later on, Nick Cook, Kirksville girls wrestling coach. First of all, we will be joined by Michelle. Very nice to have you. See you.
Thank you.
Talk a little bit about, before we get into it, a lot of people have seen you on the sidelines and on the bench over the course of the years, things like that. How long have you been with the Dogs?
More than 30 years.
We'll go with that spring football right now. How have things been going leading up to the spring football game in a couple weekends?
So the guys are getting in shape. The spring football is really about orienting some of the young players that didn't play in the fall to their positions or repositioning some of the players. So they're starting to get into that flow now. It looks like we understand the game and really starting to get fit. So it's pretty exciting to see things coming around towards the end of the semester here.
And from an athletic training perspective this time of year, what are some of the things that are some of your primary responsibilities when it comes to making sure that in April everybody's ready to go and when August rolls around?
Well, so one of our big things is making sure we don't get hurt in April. We really don't want to see an injury that happens in the spring prevent somebody from playing in the fall. So we're a little bit more cautious. We make better decisions about what activities they'd be involved in. You might be able to be a little bit more risky in the fall. You do something so you can play in a game. Where in the spring, we know we have months until the season, so we don't push anything.
Preventative measures, what are some of the things that, like you mentioned, what are some of the things that you preach in that regard?
So we're really working hard in the weight room. That's where things begin. This certainly helps us in the fall, but also keeps us healthy in the spring. So making sure we're increasing our flexibility, making sure we have good nutrition on hydration in the spring. It's easy to slack off when you don't have a game coming and not make those good decisions. So we really emphasize making sure that we're taking care of our bodies in the spring so that they will be fit and healthy for the fall.
Where do you kind of draw the line for when everybody goes their separate way when classes are dismissed for the spring? Where do you and the coaching staff I guess, what are some of the advisory points that you get a lot of these players that maybe they wouldn't hear from the coaching staff with the background that you have?
Well, one of the first things we do is make sure that they always feel comfortable calling any one of me or my staff. If there's an injury, they're really comfortable texting, calling, sometimes at any hour of the day or on the weekends. But that makes sure that we have good communication and we can give help as fast as possible. Taking care of that ankle that they rolled right there, that those first 2 days that it's starting to swell is so much better than waiting 2 weeks until they come back to campus. So we either give them advice over the phone, or they can come up and see us, or at least we can connect them with some care wherever they are.
Outside of just the football side of things, one thing I think it's very interesting is just talking about Truman's exercise science program and things like that. I know that a great deal of these players are very informed about their own bodies, studying their own bodies, they study their anatomy in general, and they'll talk about that crossover a little bit.
Sometimes it's really powerful when you do talk about hydration and they just learned that in class and they seem to have maybe your words mean more now that they've heard it from not just coach or not just Michelle, but they also learned it in class. It seems like it's for real now or it's backed by science. When I do talk to them about stretching and they can understand where their hamstrings are and why I'm doing what I'm doing, they seem to have a little bit more buy-in. So whether we're more effective or we would do it with a little more intentionality, I think having that background is helpful.
Talk a little bit about, we mentioned stretching and hydration and all of those kind of things before you fully exert yourself, especially in the spring football season, wherever worst possible thing we can do is get hurt. What else goes under that?
Really, it's about having your body prepared. So a lot of these guys are going to class in the morning. They're sitting all day. They have it road. And now we're asking you, we get up and sprint super hard. So making sure that one, they've had lunch, and two, that practice doesn't begin full blast. We spend about 45 minutes before we really start sprinting or running or cutting, doing drills, making sure that our bodies are in tune with practicing. We're ready to change speed, we're ready to change direction. And then that's going to prevent your injuries a lot more than like the first thing you do doing sprints or doing cutting drills. Or, I mean, we don't do any hitting in the spring, but maybe even doing hitting, you don't want to take off your first day with that.
One thing I've always found kind of interesting, I've always intended to kind of ask you anyway, is position groups. You got all different types of bodies, all different types of archetypes. I mean, how do you handle what's the difference between a 5'10" slot receiver and a 6'3", 300-pound liner from your
For sure. That's what to me makes it exciting is I like the variety and the versatility that I run into. It makes it a challenge and it really makes it fun. So I do have to customize everything that I do on working with the two uh, football players that have an ACL tear. They're both good about the same spot, but one's a tight end and one is an offensive lineman. And trying to help them learn that one is going to be bursting off a line doing hard, quick movements. And so we're over there working on the sled where another one might be running longer routes, having to change direction a lot more often, so that's an emphasis in their rehab.
talk about that specifically too. One of those terrible, three-letter acronyms that you
Right.
hear when it comes to the knee. And when it does happen, what's how do you handle it?
So our first response is just being honest with them and letting them know what their injury is. So if we do feel like it's a one of those three-letter words, one of those ACL tears, so making sure the patient or the athlete knows that that's what's going on and what that's going to entail, even with an 8, 9, 10 month recovery, letting them know that we have the resources to help connect them with the surgery they might need and the care afterwards. And that's how it starts. And then connecting them the minute they've had their surgery, making sure that they have a place that they go safe and comfortable. And usually that's in our office, starting their rehabilitation. We're surrounded by their teammates, which make them feel like they're still part of the team and help them stay motivated throughout that long process.
During your tenure here, have you seen, well, of course you have, but how have you seen that kind of medical science evolve and how we adapt it?
I think we take rehab much faster than we ever used to. We're obviously smarter. We know what drills to avoid and what activities to avoid, but we're able to move it much quicker. It used to be you would rest for 6 weeks after you had surgery and then start activities. And now we're learning that 2 days after the surgery, if you get moving, your rehabilitation goes a little bit smoother. You have less pain, and I don't know, they seem to come back a little bit faster.
And that's become common practice.
For sure.
What other things like that have you seen evolve in your field?
I think concussions would probably be the big topic. And our concussion care is kind of done the opposite. We've become more conservative with our concussion care. We realize how important uh, or how traumatic brain injury can be and how much it can affect the rest of your life. So we're a lot more careful with pulling people out of activities. But we also learned that concussions require rehab just like a knee injury would. And so we're doing exercises with your vision, with your balance, with memory, and with thought processing to help you get that full recovery, just like we would if it was a knee or an ankle.
And so when it comes to the topic of, I'm glad you bring that up. When it comes to the topic of head injuries and things like that, which have obviously become way more visible to the public, to the fan, to the average spectator in the course of the past decade, not just necessarily differences in practice of how you handle it, but just in terms of recovery off the field and things like that as well. Has that has that evolved as far as you see?
Especially when we're talking about the college level, we're talking about returning to the classroom.
Exactly.
And it's easier now, I think, to explain to a professor that someone has a concussion and maybe they're not ready to take that test or that quiz. Where before just like on the field, we didn't take concussions as seriously. So now when I tell a professor, well, this person might need a little bit more time, they may need to take 3 days to finish a project, they seem to be more understanding. And we do try to space that out so the brain has the proper rest it can and so they can return and be a full, strong student like it done before.
What are some of the things you're looking forward to when, the real season approaches? Obviously spring on your end is mostly about not getting in,
Right.
remaining fit, as you mentioned. But when the real season rolls around, what are some of the things that you have to hit on in, mid, late July before everybody's back in full action?
The first thing that we really emphasize in the summer is getting acclimated to the heat. That is one of the things that can be devastating. It first predisposes you to all kinds of injuries if you're not heat acclimated. And then obviously heat illness, whether it's heat exhaustion or heat stroke, I mean, that can be deadly. And so that's always a big fear of mine when we hit July is we have so many guys that are maybe doing summer internships or one of those bright schools where our guys are doing internships indoors in nice air-conditioned buildings at some accounting office. And then we ask them to come out in August and play football. So making sure that we understand and that they do have quite a bit of time spent outside doing strenuous activity in the heat. And it's so easy to do it first thing in the morning and it's cool. But that's not when practice is going to be. So trying to make sure they have that heat exposure progressively starting in the middle of the summer.
What are some of those things that you tell those guys to do? Go for a jog?
Absolutely. If you can just be outside, that helps. They don't have those summer physical jobs outside anymore. They have the good internships. So getting them outside, telling them even to go for a walk, go for a bike ride, but doing their workouts, if they can hit the midday heat, that's when we want them to do it. But if they can't, making sure that they spend more time outside on the weekends trying to get their bodies acclimated.
One thing specifically I want to ask you about as well is, I'm sure you've seen it hundreds of times, but kids who come into this program in and practice, practice in the spring or at least get adjusted to the team, but dudes who aren't necessarily fully uh, adapted to the rigor of a college football program,
For sure.
incoming freshmen, things like that. What do you say to them?
Really, once they get here, it's a little too late. And we realize that, and I think our coaching staff does a fantastic job differentiating the amount of activity that those freshmen get. And it's usually the freshmen that aren't quite ready for the college level. And so they're going to get less repetition or they're going to get the easier repetitions. And we're going to try to progressively integrate them into practice rather than expecting them to go 100% against maybe the big experienced guys. And though that's just going to get hurt. And obviously that's not the point.
And to that point, I mean, not even necessarily incoming Bulldog freshman, but what would you just say to any freshman who's leaving the high school level and entering the collegiate level as they embark on their athletic journey?
I think first of all, just knowing that that is a big jump, and knowing it's going to be hard when you get there. Talking to the coach wherever you're going and asking them for those workouts so you can start to get acclimated to it. You can get used to the kind of work that they do, but you can't simulate that at home on your own. It's just very different. And so just knowing that there's going to be some pain and then it's going to be a difficult change for you. But once you get there, you look at those sophomores, juniors, and seniors and how easy they seem to make it look. It will be that easy for you someday.
And I've kind of noticed that over the course of the years especially with football program, is that you would think these sophomores and juniors have done it their entire lives. Anything that goes into that from the coaching staff's end that didn't know what started that you have personally impacted.
I think our coaches are just very good teachers. They spend a lot of time teaching, and whether that's watching film, breaking down specific techniques, working with some individuals, maybe it's after practice or when they are in the weight room. And I think those things all add up, and it's amazing to watch the transition from that first day in August, even until the day in November when we're at the end of the season. They're very different looking at that point.
How did at the beginning of your career, how did football just kind of click with you with what you wanted to do with your profession?
That football is probably what attracted me to the profession of athletic training. I always enjoyed football. I enjoy the variety, like you said, how there's so many different positions and the intelligence that goes into the game. It's a very complicated game, and I was always fascinated by that. And obviously, not a lot of women play a role in football, and medicine was also fascinating. So when I found that those two could be matched, it seemed like it was the perfect fit for me.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. A trailblazer, especially in our part of the world in Division II football in Missouri. Pretty trailblazing. What's outside of football are your roles throughout the year as head athletic trainer outside of sports? So
Outside of football was my responsibility. I have a staff. There's 5 of us total, 5 certified athletic trainers. So it's to make sure that all of our sports, so all 400 of our student athletes are taken care of. So I divide up my staff and make sure that we're in all practices and competitions for all of our teams and make sure that they're being taken care of properly. I make sure that especially prevention measures are taken care of across the entire department. Also, I teach 2 classes a semester, 2 or 3 classes a semester in our Masters of Athletic Training our Masters of Athletic Training program.
and I was going to break that up as well. Most of the people that we've had on the program since September or whenever we began, um, all coaches don't really have boots on the ground when it comes to actual education, just coaching. uh, kind of that two-pronged role that you fill, both as head athletic trainer and as an educator. Tell me about that crossover.
I think it's really exciting for me. I have a short attention span, so if I get bored at football practice or I get bored in athletics, I've got the excitement of the classroom, and once the classroom starts to drag, I've got the other end. And for me, those two, they are such carryover. I'm teaching in the Master of the Athletic Training program. I've got athletic trainers, people who want to do what I do, that I'm teaching in the morning, and then we can go out to a practice in the afternoon and see just exactly what I was talking about. So if I'm talking about a shoulder, they can see that shoulder injury and they get so excited because they're seeing in place what we just talked about. And that excitement to me is contagious. It reminds me again why I'm doing what I'm doing. It makes it fun all over again every day.
So being able to present that kind of like on the job training, so to speak, how far does that go for, some of your students to really be able to see what you do professionally while you at the same time are their educator?
I think for most of them, that helps make the connection clearer. You've had professors in class who maybe did it a long time ago, but they didn't stand out of practice tonight in the cold. When I think maybe there's a level of respect or a level of trust that you get because they see you every day doing exactly what you're talking about.
We had on the opposite end, I wanted to hit on this and it slipped my mind for a moment, but on the opposite end, you talked about the extreme heat in the summer. We haven't exactly had the most pleasant spring. So
Correct.
uh, wind, cold, and rain, conditions like that. How do you how do you handle how do you handle players differently, I guess?
When we're in the cold, we certainly make sure we spend a little bit more time warming up. And then I encourage the guys also when practice is over to do a warm down in a warm environment. So get in a warm environment, ride a bike, do a little bit of jogging, do some stretching. Still all those muscles that got kind of tense towards the end of practice because you were standing around waiting your return or waiting your repetition, and you were sweaty. And so you kind of got some pulled in tight, making sure we stretch and we go home nice and loose and we're
About the team itself, give us a couple of Easter eggs, a couple of spoilers coming off of a playoff run for the first time in 3 decades last year. You know some things that I'm sure most of us don't. What do you see in the
oh,
spring?
no, I don't know if I can tell any of those secrets. I mean, I think obviously we had a premier running back in Dental Cook last year, and you're going to have to see a little bit change up and maybe a little bit more group effort towards that running back position. We brought in a quarterback at the midterm, and I think he's going to be competitive or at least push our start a little bit. He has a little bit different style of play. Our defense has gotten a year older, so that'll be exciting to see them settling into their role a little bit more.
As far as the game of football itself, you mentioned that just just the intersection of medical science and football is kind of what you fell in love. Talk about what you just learned about the game over the years, and just you have to enjoy football to an extreme degree to be in the position that you're in.
You have to. I think you're kind of silly if you're not on there doing it and you don't like it because, like a day like today, standing out there, the cold is pretty miserable. You better love what you're doing, and I certainly do. I think what I've learned is a lot more passive. You're standing on the sidelines and you hear the plays and you see the plays and you don't really realize until maybe you're at home on a Saturday night watching a college game and you find yourself calling the next play or calling the defense that should be out there and you're going, wow, I didn't even think I knew that, or you didn't realize that it was just so inherent in your everyday life.
As far as how they handle injuries and treating players as far as nutrition, all that whole umbrella. Was there really any significant change between Greg Nesbitt and Kellum Nesbitt when that torch was passed down?
That was super easy. Obviously they both had the same emphasis in having good, strong, educated young men. They recruit the same kind of guys, and they certainly want the same outcome. They want to win, but they want to treat the guys very well, and they want them to be happy and healthy. And I really appreciate the good communication I've received from Kellen as he's taking over. I think he just grew up with that same mindset, so it's really been pretty seamless.
And do you think for a lot of people in your position, similar sized schools, that could be a point of what friction?
Absolutely. A lot of times the athletic trainer is the bad guy or the bad girl. We bring the news and that they don't want to hear. We ask them to maybe a starter take it a little bit easy. And that's extremely frustrating when I think the relationship that I've developed with our coaching staff, they know that we both have the same end goal in mind, and that's to make us bigger, stronger, better, and faster. And if we take the breaks when I suggest hopefully we can come out that way about using a step or using much.
As far as when you guys cut these kids loose for the summer, what comes after the spring game, and what's kind of like the debriefing from that point until stuff really gets rolling?
For me, it's just to make sure that anybody who had any injuries, whether they're over the winter, whether they're in the weight room or even in spring ball, making sure we've got them addressed and we have a plan to address them for the rest of the summer. That they understand if they get any worse, how we're gonna do that, or what they're gonna do to maintain their spring over the course of the summer.
Michelle, I appreciate it greatly. Thank you
That's
very
it.
much for
Thank
taking
you.
this.
Appreciate it.
Anything I'm forgetting to ask you?
Thanks.
I appreciate it very much. Michelle Boyd, head athletic trainer for Truman State University. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Joined out by Elizabeth Anderson. Very nice to have you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for having me.
In her 5th year at Kirksville High as the speech and debate and theater teacher slash coach.
All of the above.
All of the above. Every high.
Yes, as many as possible.
At the end of February, Kirksville was on the 27th, 28th of February, Kirksville was in the Class 1 District 3 speech and debate tournament, formerly known as forensics, among other things, right? Or was it just strictly formerly known as the forensics tournament?
Well, 20 years ago when I was competing, we were the National Forensics League, so I got to tell them I was in the NFL.
That is fantastic. That team will compete on the 24th and 25th of this month in state. And theater had their Class 1 District 8 on the 17th, and that state competition will be the 2 days prior.
Yeah.
All of those things are correct.
Everything except theater's not classed, so we were competing against Kansas City schools of all sizes.
Duly noted. Talk a little bit about, first and foremost, your district competitions, how those things went, and what's going into the rapidly approaching state competitions.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, yeah, we're two separate activities, so there's a lot going on. Our speech and debate team, we had a strong season, but it was shortened due to lots of weather and canceled meets. So our students were ready and excited, but maybe not as prepared as we've been in some previous years, having as many tournaments under their belts. But we took a really great team. Every single member of the team made it on to the elimination rounds, so that was super exciting for us. The top 4 in each event get to advance to state, so we have 12 students who will be doing that. Those events are all really individualized. So there are interp events, which are more like acting. There are public speaking, public address events. And then we also have one student on our debate side of things going to state. So they mostly are preparing outside of class. They all know their pieces. They're not changing what they're doing. So they're getting daily reminders to work on it, to set up practice time for myself and my co-coach, Heather Dara. And hopefully they're not forgetting that it's happening. It's been a while since districts, and they've started their spring sports, and they're planning for prom and so many other things. We got to keep it focused in the track.
And in addition to looking at colleges.
Oh, so many things.
Yeah. Does it still include extemporaneous speaking?
Yes, it
All
will
that boom.
include all of those things.
And so that's all under the same umbrella as speech and debate.
Yeah, so there's 3 main debate categories. The interp events, which are easiestly to be described as close to acting, humorous interp, dramatic interp. But in true speech and debate, kid will tell you they're not acting. And the public address ones, informative speaking and let's just informative. And then there's also original oratory, which is persuasive speech. We have students competing in both of those. And then the debate, so public address also includes extemporaneous speaking. And we do have a student in US extemporaneous. So she has 30 minutes to prep on any possible topic. And I'm really glad it's her and not me.
I can certainly understand that. On the theater side, you guys perform what you had performed at the district. Is it the same performances?
We do. There's 2 different categories in theater. There is the one act competition, which is just like a normal play, only shorter. And then there's the reader's theater, which is completely different than most theater. You have the script, you don't get a set, you walk around blocks, you're creating a different kind of theater. So we took both of those 2 districts. Our one act did not make it onto state finalation, but our readers theater made it first place district champion. So they'll be doing the same piece. That's where they are right now. They're at rehearsal. That's why my co-director couldn't be here with me. And so they'll perform for the public on Monday, the 20th of April. And then we'll take that to state. They'll perform once against 8 other schools. Hopefully, they'll be in the top 2 in that group, which means they go on to finals. So there'll be 2 from our group and 2 from another group of competitors. And so 4 make it to the finals. Last year, our one act made it to that top 4. So we're hoping our Readers Theater will as well, because we're just growing and keep doing more at state. And so that's our goal. We have a lot of pressure.
It kind of cracked me up when I was doing a little bit of research before having you on the podcast, like clicking on the roster on the Misha website. It's remarkable. It seems like the list never ends. I mean, you've generated a lot of
I don't know our exact numbers at this moment. I think around 40 kids participated in something this season. Students, for the most part, take a class. And that class is where we prep and they compete. We have one for the interpreters, and then we also have one for speech and debate. Students who have previously done debate are also allowed to participate even if they're not in the class, because those students are involved and they take classes here at Truman as well as at the high school and online, and they have really complicated schedules to try and work around. So we've got, yes, so many students.
Well, I mean, and I really don't think it's a stereotype, but we've said it for 50 since I was in high school, and the theater kids are the busiest of all. Juggle everything, manage everything. How do you make that work? How do you make everybody's individual schedule work, especially when you have so many talented students?
I'm really good with spreadsheets. So in addition to the Misha activities, we also have the extracurricular main stage productions. And so that's where those schedules really come in. Thankfully, the competition theater team, it's much smaller casts of like 12, and that's an easier, survey of schedules to try and figure out. But no, our spreadsheets are the best thing.
It must really help too that you and Heather kind of share a job. Like, I guess, how do you guys delegate in that regard?
Oh my goodness. Well, we couldn't do it without each other, for sure. We have these roles that we kind of fill. For our speech and debate team, I'm kind of our head coach there. I get to teach the 2 classes that the students are primarily in. Heather gets to teach the novice or intro class, so she's kind of introducing people to the activity. And I take care of all the paperwork and trip planning and stuff. When it comes to the theater team, we split it up. Heather was in charge of the Readers Theater. I was in charge of the one act. And then also when we go to bringing in all the main stages as well, Heather takes the directorial lead there. I take the paperwork production manager lead. And thankfully, we have classrooms really close together. And we both have Truman theater backgrounds. So we kind of speak the same language and think about theater in similar ways.
Look ahead a little bit to that 4-day span, the 22nd to the 25th, when both of these events are back to back and just kind of a crossover there. How, just everything that goes into an event like that, from hotels to dining to just bus rides, and just how you manage such a large group.
Well, again, I said I loved spreadsheets. So we'll travel on the 22nd, and with the theater team, the competition theater team, they will for sure perform on the 22nd. It's down in Springfield, so we're gonna take in some Springfield necessities. Buc-ee's and Lambert's are on the list of to-dos. We all get to stay overnight. There's a hotel with a pool. That's all that matters to the team. But yeah, we have to work closely with our activities director, Sarah Williams, and our activities administrative assistant, Nancy Pletz, to make all of this happen. As soon as we made it to state in theater, we started reserving a block of rooms that could, if everybody made it in the next debate, would we all need them? And then process of canceling what we don't need. Sent an email to parents today. These are the restaurants we're thinking of. Are there any allergies I have to know about? So it's a small feat.
I certainly understand. And I just thought that would be an interesting question for you. A lot of coaches that we speak with, it's commonplace. Overnight trips and things like that. But for you, I mean, this is like a big stage. So once a year to do it.
We even have to take 2 buses. We'll go down the theater team on one bus, and then Sarah Williams will have to ride down on the bus, bring us some new students, take back some other students. So yes, it is quite the scheduling experience.
Yes, I'm sure it is a logistic nightmare that requires a couple spreadsheets,
Yes, there's more than one.
more than one spread. What are you guys performing?
The Reader's Theater is called a Monster Calls. Some people might be familiar with it. It does have a movie adaptation and a book. But there's a young boy whose mom has terminal cancer, and he's trying to deal with that. And a tree in his backyard turns into a monster who tells him stories. And through those stories, he starts to discover some stuff about himself and his relationships. And when we performed it before districts, the audience couldn't stop crying, which we felt pretty good about. So
No, I think that's a fantastic sign. What you mentioned earlier when we were talking that you guys did have a competition um between your speech and debate district and now like a non-mission competition. Things like that. Where do you find those types of things? Where are competitions like that? Where they entail all that stuff.
So we also are a part of NSDA, the National Speech and Debate Association, and so they have their own like championship circuit. And so last year was our first year being a member of NSDA, and we had a student make it to nationals in extemporaneous speaking. So this year we took about 6 students to that meet. We are part of the St. Louis area district, so that's another 2 to 3 nighter meet. And most speech and debate meets, a lot of people I'm sure are not as familiar. The students compete in several rounds. There'll be like 6 speakers in a room, and a judge has to decide who was the first best speaker in the room and who was the 6th speaker in the room. And so it's the luck of the draw who you're against, and it's the luck of the draw who the judge is. We don't get officially trained judges like you might on the court or the field. So we've got people who have seen speaking before. That's the requirement. Mm. So that's really difficult to make sure you have a piece that communicates to almost any variety of an audience. And so it's exciting when we make it to a finals rounds or to state, because hopefully that means we picked a piece that communicated to enough judges in a way that was powerful.
I like that you phrase it like that. When it comes to something that's being judged so subjectively, so objectively as possible. And so, like, I guess I would, on that topic, I would leave you with this. What are some of the kind of pieces that we look for? Are you mostly trying to pull on the heartstrings, or
For our theater, it is competition. It's really a chance for us to play with stories we don't get to play with during the regular season. Our main stages need to be really big and provide lots of opportunities, and our competition team gets to be a little smaller. The last 2 years, the Reader's Theater has been a tearjerker. Our one act has been traditionally exploring some more traditional theater. Last year, we took The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a 100-year-old classic. This year's dealt with Shakespeare. So opportunities for our students to learn about parts of theater they don't necessarily get to in the main stage opportunity because it is still education as well as competition. And then in speech and debate, it's what speaks to our students. We've got the kids who desperately want to make people cry, and then we've got somebody do 27 different impressions in one piece. So
it's just everything? And
in between, yes.
Elizabeth, before I let you go, just tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to between now and the 22nd, and just how you were seeing everything coming along and fall into place, and all this.
Well, I am really excited to get to watch our Readers Theater take the feedback they did receive at districts, clean it up, sharpen it up, make it even stronger, and what that's going to mean for them on the state stage. And for my speech and debate students, I know a lot of them, this was a goal. We've got some seniors who've been trying to make it there their whole career, and now they're there. And just for them to get to experience it and have fun, and they get to make friends with kids from other schools at meets that maybe you don't get to do as much in other sports. And so I'm excited for them to get to see those connections and grow those at state as well.
And where does your program go from here? I mean, what is your, like, how many seniors do you lose after this year?
Oh gosh, I haven't thought to count because it would make me sad. Uh, In my current classroom, I'm gonna lose 7 out of speech and debate, a couple from our theater program, but we have a really strong junior class and a really strong sophomore class, so we can only hope we keep building.
A lot of room for excitement.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth Anderson, speech and debates
Yeah.
and theater. We go with Coach.
Coach, I love it.
We go with Coach, Kirksville High School. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having
We appreciate it.
All right.
Joined now by Kirksville head girls wrestling coach Nick Cook. Nick, thanks, man. Yeah, it's good to see you this evening. We haven't spoken on this program. Friend of the program, Nick Cook. We have not spoken since the Class 1 girls state tournament. A little bit of Kirksville girls wrestling history, although it's only in its 8th year, was made with a state runner-up and 2 other girls appear. Talk a little bit first and foremost just about the state meet in general.
Yeah, so I thought, we did pretty good. We had 2 of our seniors, Morgan Crawford and Brooklyn native Johnson, make it this year. And then we had freshmen, Preston Knife made it. So, but overall, I think did pretty good for the girls program. Kirksville, those girls competed hard. Brooklyn went on. It was a state runner-up for us at 190 pounds this year. Had just a phenomenal state tournament. She wrestled. Gal out of Kearney, ranked pretty high in the nation, and Brooklyn did a really good job. That girl wrestled the match she needed to wrestle, and that girl just ended up coming on top. So just real proud of the girls and where they came this year.
Specifically about Raider Johnson, Carly Vargas. Yes, Carly Vargas is the Kearney girl's name, and Brooklyn battled with her for the first 2 periods before falling at the 4:16 mark. Talk a little bit about that championship match, everything leading up to it, and just what she has meant to your program.
Yeah, so everything led up to it was actually day 1 of practice. We knew that was a girl that we were going to have to beat going into the state tournament. Brooklyn, returning state medalist, 6th place last year. Just had a great year, junior year. So, we've been training for that girl all year long. We've just kind of been scouting her out. Burst's really good on her feet, in the neutral position, and that's definitely her strongest suit. But where we noticed that she lacked a little bit was in her conditioning. And so when we knew that we had her in the finals, the goal wasn't to go out and win the match. The goal was to go 3 periods with her. And Brooklyn did that. And, that first period on Kearney, got us down, had to take down, got some back points on us. And gained all of her points in that first period. And Brooklyn was able to get out of that, go to the second period. We chose top, which is Brooklyn's best position, and Brooklyn rode her out that whole second period. I've had a couple of chances maybe to get a cradle locked up, just wasn't able to do that. But we were right where we needed to be. I felt like we wore Vargas down a little bit, and in Brooklyn, she was very excited and had all the confidence in the world going into that third period. I got a little excited. Maybe if we could have just been a little more patient in that third period and maybe tried to win in the last 15 to 20 seconds. But you got to give it to Vargas. She did what she needed to do to win, and she did that. I thought Brooklyn just wrestled a heck of a match with real battle.
I did not realize that was a girl that you guys had your eyes on all year.
Yeah.
That she was going to be the likely.
Yeah, so Vargas, we have a little history of her. She's just a great wrestler. She's probably ranked in the top 8 or 10 in the nation. Just a really good wrestler. But we wrestled her a couple years ago. Madison Crawford placed 3rd at state. Madison wrestled her, I think, in the quarterfinals or semifinals, and we were just right on the cusp of beating Vargas, which we would have led to the finals if we gave her. So we have a little history with her, and yeah, she's the girl gate in that weight class. So we just kind of been scalping her all year, and we were ready for her. And we're coming out some really big match for us too.
And absolutely nothing for her to hang her head about. And I know that she knows that. And she had 3 great matches leading up to the championship.
Yeah, she wrestled some girls that she hadn't wrestled this year and beat them. Maybe the month before, Brooklyn mentally wasn't where she needed to be. But, we train these girls for the end. Brooklyn's goal at the beginning of the year was to place top 3 or better at state. And, so our goal was to get her to that point, and we got her to that state tournament, and she was a fierce competitor, just determined, did everything she needed to do, and just real proud of her. So
Finished the season, before we move on, just wanted to point out, she finished the season 40-6. I know especially at the, Wonder Woman tournament, she wrestled some really strong competition, wrestled who you guys believe to be the best 190-pounder in the state. Just talk about her season overall.
yeah, overall, I think she did good. It was like I said, her goal was to make it to state. So, if whenever we train for that, we don't want to peak too early as far as our conditioning. So there's probably some of those matches or tournaments maybe where we could have done a little better. We, worked on our conditioning a little bit better, but we didn't want to peak too early. So sometimes you have to take those losses. You learn from them. What do I need to do better? How do I need to do better? Not only technically but mentally. And I think there was a couple of girls that beat her that mentally helped us at that state tournament. And like I said, she just did what she needed to do. She put her head down and came out in that state tournament and just wrestled the best that I've seen her wrestle in the last 3 years. So.
And had fun doing it.
Oh, yeah, she was just watching the semifinal match where she wrestled the Oliver girl, but she's going to be a beast. That girl's a freshman and had a good record. Is actually ranked a little higher than Brooklyn. And Brooklyn came out and did what she needed to do on that girl, won a 3-0 match. And, to see the excitement in Brooklyn's eyes after that, knowing that she was moving to finals, that's the kind of moment you live for as a coach. It was just real excited for her.
And her fellow senior there at the state tournament, I know that I know that Morgan Crawford's a little bit disappointed that she went out day one, but still a very respectable season.
Yeah, Morgan wrestled this. She was a 4-year wrestler for us. Her goal was to make it to state. She never made it to state. So for her to make it to state, that was the goal. So I was excited for her. She did what she could do this year. She only missed one practice. I don't remember how many practices we had total. Counting morning practices, lifting, and then our evening practices. There was, last month we were going 2-a-days and stuff. And Morgan only missed one practice, throughout the whole season. And that just showed me the determination that she had to do what she needed to do to make it to the state championship. Yeah, she would have liked to have wrestled a little bit better, but I love when those girls are able to meet their goals. And Morgan was one that actually did that. So.
And she finished 40-11 on the season. Talk a little bit about the leadership from those two and what some of these younger girls have learned from them and what they're going to carry forward.
Yeah, so I was really thankful to have them. We have some pretty tough practices up there. We had a big freshman group come in, and to have those girls just kind of lead the younger girls, through our practice regime, and hey, it's going to be all right. You're going to get through this. You're going to get stronger. They were able to do that for us and make our program a lot stronger. And like I told them, we're still in the infancy of this girls' high school wrestling, especially in Kirksville. And they're going to be able to look back someday and say, I was one of the ones that started this whole program. We set the tone and we built the tradition. That's going to be a pretty deep thing to look back in 10, 20, 30 years, to say, hey, I know build that program. And those two seniors were part of that build process. So really grateful for their leadership and just, wishing them the best, moving forward.
Was Bristol a little bit of a surprise to you?
She was a little bit, but, about halfway through the season, she was winning matches that I was like, oh, I don't know how she won that, or maybe she wasn't supposed to win that. And she's strong. I mean, probably one of the stronger, 110, 115 pounders, in the state. And yeah, that won her a lot of matches, but she also has a lot of heart. She doesn't give up. And that will get you through a lot of wrestling matches. And that's what I tell these was you always have to be the best technically. We try to get you in the best shape possible, and it's okay to win the match, in the last 10, 15 seconds. And once they started believing that, I had some freshmen really winning some matches that maybe they shouldn't have won on paper, being some more experienced older girls. And, Bristol kind of fell into that. I think she surprised herself, but once she started gaining that confidence, it's kind of all downhill after that. She just kind of became this juggernaut. It was hard to stop. So.
Deceiving record, and I don't mean this disparagingly by any stretch of the imagination. Bristol now finished 28 and 22, but you would never know it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And we wrestle, in girls high school wrestling in Missouri, there's 2 classes, class 1 and class 2. We're class 1 team. Class 2 are usually larger schools, and we wrestle a lot of class 2 tournaments where, we might be the only class 1 team at that tournament. And I do that for a reason. I want to see, get the best competition that we can and just get the girls prepared. And that record is what it reflects, is that we wrestled a tough competition, that she was a freshman coming in. But, where she ended up just shows how far she came in her freshman year, how much she learned. And she's going to be a leader moving forward, for the program. So really excited to see where she goes.
Outside of your 3 state qualifiers, just over the course of the season, the development that you saw, especially, I love that you point out, it's a young program, especially for us in Kirksville. Kind of the trajectory that you're encouraged by for some of your other wrestlers who are going to be returners.
Yeah, so we can't do all of the individual accomplishments without a team, even though it is an individual sport. It takes a team really to push each other, and we have a great team that does that. They all hold each other accountable. They all push each other in the practice room, and it's pretty fierce up there. So, we had some girls that, right on the bubble of districts didn't make it to state, that, they're going to be coming back next year. Hopefully just keep pushing this team, just making it more competitive and get stronger and better, physically, mentally. And I'm telling you, I'm so excited to see, how we do over the next few years. We've got a really good group of girls they're starting to learn. They're starting to do it the right way. And then, the sky's kind of the limit. And I think they're starting to believe that. They're pushing themselves in the weight room. They're getting stronger. They're doing the extra work that they need to in the off season to get better. They want to see their name up on the wall. They just try to be a part of that foundation that they're hoping to build. So the future generations, they want to say, I helped build that. So.
And I think that's incredibly cool about any sport that's just like really starting to find its footing, like really starting to plant it. What goes into that? I know that Michaela plays a huge role in that as far as kind of making this thing go. What are your thoughts in that regard between you and she as far as how, we turn this program into something that can be dominant in the long run?
Yeah, and that's our goal. We live and breathe wrestling. I've been doing it now for a little over 20 years. I had my 2 boys came through high school and were successful. Michaela wrestled in the kids club, and they didn't have a high school program for girls back when she did it. So she grew up wrestling. We were all over the country, national tournaments every weekend. She knows wrestling. It's kind of been fun. You will be sitting in the corner, and she's saying what I'm thinking, so that doesn't happen very often. And she'll come home after, a 10, 12, 14-hour day wrestling, and, I'll call her up and she's already watching film, so she making notes for how we can get better. She lives it and eats, breathes, sleeps it just like I do, and just completely ate up with it. And, it's this passion that we have with it. We want to see, the individuals get better and, put Kirksville on the map. It did continue this tradition, that the boys program has had in the high school. I continue just the Kirksville wrestling tradition of being this dominant powerhouse, not only within Kirksville, but within the state. And, we want people, when we go to a tournament, we want the other coach pointing at Kirksville and go, hey, you better be ready to wrestle. They're going to be tough, win, lose, or draw. They're going to give you a match. And that's what we want to be known for. That we have a lot of heart. We don't give up, but we just wrestle tough. And I think our program is definitely leaning towards that way. And in, another year or two, I think we're going to be right where we need to be. We're going to be hard to beat after that.
And I know that even with as many points as Brooklyn Raider Jonesy's for you guys, I believe there were 91 teams in Class 1 who had at least one wrestler in the state tournament. You guys finished 35th.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are still, even then, you guys are still in the top quartile.
Right.
And that's just if teams have said somebody.
Yeah, we went 9-2 on our overall tournament record this year. We lost 2 duels in our conference tournament. And again, and I'm not taking anything away from any team. And, the teams that beat this Marshall and Mexico, or Marshall and Moberly, we came back a place higher than them at the district tournament. We were up there at the district tournament, St. Charles West in Brookfield, which is another good, both are good program, Asia South. They just had a few more girls than we did and a little bit more experience. But yeah, I mean, that's just, we're getting better every year. And these girls are starting to notice that. They take pride, they want to win the home duels. They want to win the tournaments and just continue to get better. They want to be undefeated. That's something that we want to be too. But, so it's not something you can do overnight. You just got to teach the right techniques, and the girls are getting there and the mindset that comes along with that. And we're getting there. Like you say, it's, we placed a little higher at conference this year, placed a little higher at districts, and placed a little higher at state. And I think you're just going to continue to see this girls program just continue to get a little better.
I believe so. 35 out of 91 teams with at least one qualifier. I'm not sure how many teams are in Class 1, but have to be significant in order to matter.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of teams. Yeah, I don't have that number on top of my head, too. And then this coming year, they're getting ready to split it into 3 classes. So we're kind of interested to see how that shakeup's going to be, where they put us. I assume we'll probably be in a Class 1 or Class 2. But, it's going to be a big change. The girls are we've been competing with the boys at the same time, the Mission State tournament. We're going to have our own week. It's just going to be girls only. It'll be at the Old Period Center. I grew up wrestling. That's where we wrestled. So it'll kind of be neat, kind of pulls who will throw back and they'll have it there. So it's getting better. It's, it's growing. I heard rumors that high school girls wrestling or girls wrestling in general is number one of the fastest growing sport in the nation right now. So I'm trying to get more girls out to, join the program. I talked to some girls and, they're kind of on the fence, but there's a stigma that's kind of associating with it. And I think we're starting to break down those stigmas and girls are seeing that, it's a real thing. If you join us, you're going to get stronger, more disciplined. You're going to learn, techniques that are going to help you not only today, but later on in life. And that there's also a lot of opportunities college-wise to go out and wrestle. There's some money out there. Parents always seem to like that too. So.
One thing that I probably should ask you about, mentioning college wrestling, Madison Crawford is at Quincy, correct?
Yep.
How'd her season go?
Yeah, I think she's kind of a 500 wrestler. She kind of been battling with some teammates, as far as we wrestling the 160, 190. She kind of been back and forth. So trying to get her way, where she needed. Maybe she was a little light wrestling 190. And I think there towards the end of the season, she decided she's going to try to go 160. So I'm excited for her. Hopefully next year she'll stay at that 160 or maybe even another weight class under there. I talked to her the other day. She's excited. She's going to spend a little more time this summer over there, doing some more off-season training, kind of readjusting her goals and try to make it to the national tournament next year. So I'm really excited for her putting in the work. I think it's going to pay off for her next year.
I think that for a lot of people, she kind of puts Kirksville girls wrestling as like, this is something that you can pursue collegially. Like, is it something that's out there? Is she your only collegiate wrestler so far?
Yeah. She is. With Brooklyn, I know she had some offers from quite a few coaches and clear up to Matilda State tournament. I think she still might be getting some offers, but she'd already signed to play softball, I believe, with Missouri Valley out of Marshall, and then Morgan, she's playing softball too this year. So in college. So the opportunities have been there for some girls, and I think we'll continue to get some more opportunities. We got right now Madison Pros, another one that's gone to flip to college.
I think that everybody that we're talking about, I mean, to your point about there shouldn't be any kind of stigma. This is something that we could do to pursue a college education, for that matter. Let's talk about the growth of girls wrestling over most of your time coaching.
So it's my third year, he's just started with, I think, 6 or 7 girls. And this year, I've had at one time 20, 22 girls that, were wanting to wrestle. And, some of them show up to the first week of practice or a couple weeks in and it's not for them. And I understand that, basketball is not for everybody, football is not for everybody, and wrestling is not for everybody. So, the girls that did stay, we did what we need to do to help them out. I think it's going to continue to grow too. There's 14 weight classes. And like I said, the more girls that I have do it, I think the more girls I'm going to get out. There's just kind of this friendship deal that, if I have a friend doing it to not, they're more apt to come out and join us. But it not only is it growing within our wrestling room, but we're seeing it grow within the community. The Kirksville Wrestling Foundation started a couple years ago. That's helped put wrestling and keep wrestling in the community's eyes. I get people I coached kids club for a lot of years. I had a lot of those parents, talking to me. Well, my daughter, she's 4, 5, 6 years old. We got her starting the youth program, and this should be recipes someday. And so people are excited to be a part of this program, and they always have been. But with the girls, we have daughters now that they're not happy to wrestle boys, so that has kind of been a barrier in the past. And there's other girls in the youth program, the middle schools. So mom and dads are letting their girls, start wrestling because they're not having to wrestle boys, and there's this excitement that I'm seeing within the community and not just within the schools. So. And like I say, if we can sell it to the community gets behind us, the sky's the limit. And I think we're starting to see that. There's a lot of people who are packing the home duels that we're having. We're having huge crowds. Whatever Hall of Fame night, that's been a big turnout. Our fundraisers for wrestling, Kirksville Wrestling Foundation, is always huge too. And so we love to see the community support and just hope that continues.
From your end, the things that you can control as a coach, what's kind of your philosophy when it comes to outreach and trying to keep your lineup full?
Yeah, I reach out to as many people as I can, within the community, and just let them know, how wrestling can help their daughters. I'm a bit advocate for the boys too. So just wrestling in general. But I kind of have that reputation just because I've been involved with wrestling so much. Working with the Kirksville Wrestling Foundation. I'm just letting everybody know, coming to talk to you, just keeping it out on top of the community's mind. We're wrestling year round, so it's not just a wintertime sport. We have off-season workouts and that kind of stuff. So just constantly preaching it, talking to people, keeping it in the community's eyes as best I can, I think, really helps out a bunch.
Well, we appreciate it, Nick. That's a huge part of this show too, is for you to be able to have that kind of outreach, have this platform to be able to talk to we are articulated. Nick Cook, Kirksville head girls wrestling coach. We appreciate it greatly.
Yep.
Thank you guys very much for joining us. This has been Raining Cats and Dogs. I have been your host, Henry Jansen. We appreciate you understanding that we had to call a little bit of an audible this evening and record in a different setup, but we will catch you guys next week in our regular room at the regular time. Thanks for joining us.